Good afternoon. It's Nancy Hoyer Evans. I'm the curriculum coordinator at iPathways, and I'm coming to you live on this May Day. Happy May Day. And I've been thinking a lot about community lately because we are suffering right now with a lack of community. We're trying to recreate things online that we have in person. And so it got me thinking about what has actually helped me create community as a teacher in my life. And so I thought we can often get caught up in our own little bubble, and right now people are preoccupied with the technology and trying to get all the bells and whistles going. But I want to take a second and think about who has in the past come up with some pretty amazing innovations as far as thinking about teaching. 51 years ago this month, David Gottschall, a then faculty member at DuPage County College, started something called the Great Teachers Seminar. And I'm sure that, I think he's 84, 85 now, he could not have envisioned at that time that this thing that he created, because he was frustrated with his teaching, would take on a life of its own and become a national and, in some cases, even an international movement to help teachers forge a sense of community with other teachers. So Great Teachers was born, and I attended one of these about 10 years ago, and it changed my perspective entirely. For those of you who haven't had the experience, I recommend it highly. First, when you get there, wherever it is, the entire seminar is open. The participants decide what the content is going to be. So nobody is pushing a particular agenda or a particular curriculum. The participants decide what they need, what they want to see, what they want to collaborate on, and what they want to share, which kind of changes the whole flavor. You have some autonomy in figuring out what you need for your professional development. With the Great Teacher Seminar, one of the things we had to do when we applied was we had to write 2 essays. And they were on our greatest victory as a teacher, like our best lesson, the thing that we are so happy we finally crafted it exactly where we want it to be. And then our biggest challenge, maybe the thing that has not responded to our crafting as well as we might like. And so everybody brings those in, and they decide who's going to participate based on these essays that you've written. And the first night, all of the members gather together and they brainstorm about what's important to them. What do they feel the trends are in education? What do they struggle with as teachers? How are they reaching their audience? Do they need help with that? And then the next 2-3 days of sessions are established based on what we've seen are important. But the 2 sessions that I found were the most useful were the ones having to do with the essays that we wrote. And there's a protocol that they use at Great Teachers. And it's pretty rigid in that everything else is so free and loosey-goosey and no flower children. But the protocol for Great Teachers is that you have to, first, teachers learn best when they learn from each other, okay? And that principle, actually, I believe that students learn best when they learn from each other as well. So that translates nicely. Next, the teachers that attend these are from diverse fields. So you don't do Great Teachers with just all math teachers or all engineering teachers or all social science. You want all of the disciplines there because there is something to be said for stepping outside of your area of expertise and listening to teachers and how they get those concepts across. Because you will be amazed at how you are inspired by some of these people's lessons, how they have approached things, how they see things differently than you do. That's powerful, that's valuable. Next, what did I have here? Oh, the collective wisdom. A lot of the professional development that we do, we've got a keynote speaker and they've written a book or a bunch of articles or they're on the TED Talk circuit or whatever. But our collective wisdom actually has more value. As teachers, we are on the front lines. We are experiencing our students' lives. We are trying to impact their outcomes in a positive way. And so if we pool all of our experiences together, that's so much more than just one expert. And it's less expensive if you're trying to look for professional development opportunities for your team. Finally, the big lesson in Great Teachers is simplify. Okay, keep it simple. Again, I know right now we're doing discussion boards and we're doing Zoom calls and we're doing all of these things and spinning all of these plates. But really go to the basics. What works? What changes somebody's mind? What causes them to have a breakthrough in their learning? That's what we're focusing on with the Great Teachers method, the Great Teachers movement. So when we wrote our essays, there were everybody pulled out their stories in the breakout sessions, and we had to then follow this protocol. And the protocol was we took turns going around the table, and each person would tell the story of, for instance, their greatest victory, their best lesson. Okay, for me, mine was I developed this MLA scavenger hunt. I hate teaching documentation. I think it's tedious, and it's a, kind of a just plodding through this type of source, because this sort of documentation, and I wanted to figure out a way to enliven it for myself, because I get bored easily, and especially for my students, because they all moan and groan when we get to that part of the learning. So I developed this scavenger hunt, and I put people in teams, and I gave them lists of things they had to find online together as a team, and then they had to format them. And the first group that successfully found all the right things and then formatted them correctly in the type of documentation that we were studying, they would get extra credit points. And by the time they put it all together and they brought it back and forth to me a couple times with mistakes, and I'd send them back to correct it, people were literally racing to the printer and racing up to the front to bring in to try to get those points. The sense of competition, it made it fun. When I moved around the room, I could hear students teaching each other the different, oh no, you got to alphabetize, and here's how you do a hanging indent, and the kinds of things that, I didn't have to do because they were doing it with each other. And it was I guess it was an inspiration born out of laziness on my part that ended up being this tremendous thing that I redid every semester after that. So I talked about this victory, this idea of taking a difficult concept and breaking it up and creating a competition out of it. So when you presented your victory, then everybody around the table would ask a question to clarify, how did you reach that? What made you decide to do this? And clarifying how you got to that end result. Once everybody's had a chance to ask questions, then and only then can anybody else in the group besides the person presenting offer feedback, like, oh, I do something like that as well, or that wouldn't work for my math class, or then they can give general commentary if the speaker feels like they want to hear it. Where this really came in handy was actually when we did the challenges, because the speaker, the person whose turn it was, whoever had the talking stick, they would describe in great detail the challenge that they had, a particular assignment that wasn't working well, or a unit where people really struggled, and they describe all the different things that they've done to try to solve this problem, try to approach it, try to make the material more accessible for the students, try to engage them more. And they do all of this talking and no interruption, no nothing. Then nobody makes judgments or anything. They can only ask clarifying questions about the problem, like how big was the class, and was this online, or was this a hybrid, or how long had you been teaching? They can only ask clarifying questions as you go around the table. Finally, again, then it's time for people to say, okay, here's how I dealt with it. I don't know if that would work with you. And then they can give their commentary about the feedback that they want to give the speaker. Everybody gets a turn on the hot seat, And what happens is actually the questions really help you focus because they pull you out of only your perspective, and you start to see the problem from all of these other viewpoints, which is tremendously valuable as a teacher, is to be able to step out of your shoes and look at what does this look like when I'm trying to teach this to somebody else. I can't recommend it highly enough. I actually took this principle and facilitated a workshop for a group of mental health professionals here in Central Illinois. And there were about 56 professionals of all kinds in the mental health field, and they were trying to figure out how to do conflict resolution. And so what we did was I put them in groups, and I had each person come up with their biggest challenge as far as communicating in conflict resolution, whether it's with patients, with administration, with other healthcare workers, whatever it was. And then we went through this process where you talk about your problem, you talk about the various ways you've tried to solve it, and then the other members of the group would say, well, I had something like that, here's what I tried, and they would give their feedback. And it was, you could feel the atmosphere in the room lighten as people thought, there is no room for judgment. It's absolutely a safe place to really discuss your successes and your failures and where you feel like you might be lacking, and please help me. It's also a safe place to brag and say, hey, I got there. I got to this place where I have this thing that really works. And those things are inspiring, and they make you feel invigorated. Hanging out with other people who care about becoming better at their craft of teaching and who care about the learners on the other side. It's really kind of like plugging into, you get all juiced up, you get amped up. So I would recommend that if you can, look online, go check out the Great Teachers Movement website, and you can read a little bit about the history, which I touched on today. I would recommend that if you can't make it to a retreat, and I understand that we all can't get away, especially now, for a 4-day retreat somewhere, see if you can't duplicate this in your own place or even online. You could create a discussion board with your fellow teachers, faculty members, wherever, and you could try this. Say we're going to have one for our challenges and one for our victories, and we're going to go in and we're going to try this process of describing the scenario, asking questions, and then getting feedback, remembering that this is always a safe place. Okay? I like to think of these great teachers retreats. I hope they'll be going on all summer, but they may not. And so you have to recreate these. We're innovators. We can create this in any form, whatever works for us. I hope you'll try it. I have found it transformative. I hope you have a great May Day. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple weeks. Take care. Bye.